So here we are at the Primrose Hill job part 2. Now yesterday I spent some time here, well actually I spent all day here, which was rather unexpected. The removal team actually turned up unexpectedly. They had the wrong date on their order. So as I wasn't too far away, I was actually at the Chelsea job at the time, I decided to come here because I could. What happened was they had lots of the stuff that was coming out of storage. Often clients will put things into storage for a period of time. I keep a record of all of these. I've been working with the firm for quite some time who handle all my storage, so I knew what was in there and I knew what was coming out. But it's always quite nice to see old friends of furniture. So we have over the back, we have a variety of different things. We have bookcases and we have chairs, and coffee tables and all sorts of things. So today is going to be a case of looking through these. A lot of them are going to be going off to be sold, but only a week's time, so we haven't got that long to go. We did lots of packing, most of which is gone. So the removal team were very good. They picked up everything that they needed to pick up yesterday and that was dealt with. But today we have a separate job. This has been one that's been planning for a couple of weeks. We have a few items of furniture. These things down here, we have these chairs, cushions and that table on the side there, and we also have a piano. And pianos are actually an interesting thing to move. They generally have to go in crates or in containers of their own if you're going to store them. We're not storing this one. This is actually going off to a client's parents. And it's actually come from the client's parents, so it's going back to its former home. But they'll have to actually bring like a piano trolley with it. Pianos are extremely heavy. You've got to be very, very careful with them. So I watch people like a hawk when they're removing them, and removing them somewhere else, that is. So we're waiting for the guys to turn up. They should be arriving very shortly, and then they'll take one look at this and get their act together quite soon. The other thing that's also happening today is we're actually removing a lot of the things from this part of the flat, the apartment, downstairs to the storage depot. The storage depot is something downstairs which the clients have, which is great for them to actually have. It means that this flat, this apartment, comes with an actual storage place within the building that they can put things in. It's quite a small space, but it's quite a tall space, so you can stack things up. So I have a whole raft of different things which are going downstairs. So that's the first thing for the removals team to do when they get here. Now I showed you on the last, one of the last videos, that there are a few things that we're going to be getting rid of. Some things like children's toys don't really amount to much cost-wise. So often you'll have to do something called free cycling them. Now free cycle is a organisation, if you like, that we have over here in London. I'm not quite sure whether they're sort of worldwide. I guess you could Google them and see. But we have a few items which are actually going on the free cycle lot, and these include children's furniture. There's a random little car. Just really interesting things that need to be got rid of, and need to be got rid of in a timely manner because they're not going to be sold or anything like that because there's no money in them. The difficulty with that is if you're actually getting people to collect those types of things, often if they're free they don't turn up, so it can be a logistical nightmare. Sometimes it's simpler just to get them off site, just get rid of them and donate them to charity. Yes, there's a little bit of a cost involved with picking things up, taking a cab or jumping, putting them in the car, something like that. That's okay to do, but generally if you can get rid of them and send them to loving homes, then that's the nicer thing to do. First thing to do, get the keys, and let's get the storage room open.
So here are the chairs that are going to be removed, some blinds which I'm taking with me, some pots, and there's the sofa which has got to go, and all the other different bits and bobs which are moving out today, including bookcases, mirrors, display cabinets at the back there. That's a coffee table with its glass insert, and other different bits and bobs going out the door. Guys here moving the piano, safely wrapping it up in blankets. It will be going on a trolley after this. Here are the two chairs now wrapped up, ready to go. And this is an Indian screen. This is going to be sold. It's actually really, really ornate. It's actually very pretty, but it's quite large. It's sort of over sort of 2.5 meters tall, but as you can see, it's it's beautiful workmanship, sort of painted on. It's a little bit cracked here and there, but well worth keeping. Specialist piece, I think. This is the original fireplace. I'm not quite sure when it dates from. I'm not big on fireplaces, but this is going to be kept by the clients. They want to hang on to this for a while, and you can kind of see the vein work within it. Quite porous, it's marble, so we'll have to take care of that when the refurbishment gets done.
So here we are again in the Chelsea house. Now I've had an action-packed morning, as you can probably imagine. Once all the items were moved over from the Primrose Hill job, part 2, to the St John's Wood property, we realised that there were quite a few other little bits that needed doing over there. So we've nailed those sort of down. There were just a few things that the client wanted us to do, straighten out a few rugs, move a few items, and take a bit of an inventory of the different things that needed to sell. There is a sofa which you may or may not remember. I'll put a link up that is actually due for selling, and they're actually thinking about having that over into the property. So I had to have a quick measure up to see whether it would go through the different doors and the different archways that are in the property, just to make sure it could come in, because it's actually quite a huge depth. You've got sort of it's about 230 centimetres in length, but the depth of it is a good metre, which is quite difficult to actually get through some doorways here in London. So the removal team think they can do it, so I'm going to sort of vaguely pencil that in for Tuesday, and hopefully that will go according to plan on that day. At the same time as that was happening, I had a call from the Chelsea job, the Chelsea clients, who said that a sofa was being delivered today. Now, they flicked me an email about this last night. This tends to happen towards the end of a project, when clients start ordering for themselves, either online or in stores, and they'll just let you know when things are turning up. So this was all fine because I was coming here anyway, and what's actually happened is that the sofa has come in, but it's sort of rather in the way. It's actually in the hallway at the moment. It's fine, it's all boxed up, very much like the other sofa still is, and I don't want to move it into this room that I'm here at the minute, because the fireplace has just been done and I need the fireplace people to finish the job off before that comes in. We can move a few things out of the way, which I think we will do, and you'll just have to juggle things around as you go, and ask the builders, out of the kindness of their hearts, to move things for you, to move things around in properties as they go. They're quite used to doing this, and they're usually quite happy to do that, or at least my lot are for me. So on to the fireplace. So the fireplace is now looking like this. So if you remember, it had a lintel before, and now we have just a very, very straight fireplace. And it looks actually quite good. It's very sort of simply done, and so it'll basically just be a very simple archway, just going all the way around, and then you'll just have a plain black hearth, and obviously there will be a fire basket in there. So it should be finished, I would think, probably in about a week or so's time, providing that the installation team have enough time to come in, because everything else is ready. Obviously the decorators will have a little bit of their work cut out, which is this part of it over here. So this is obviously where the lintel, the pad was at the top, and then the lintel sat on top, and that stuff had to come off. In the end, they actually had to take off the entire fireplace, and this is because some of these fireplaces are actually put together with bolts through. They don't just sit on the wall and then have one thing on the top and they're just balanced on top of one another. They're actually fixed together with bolts, which is what happened. So once you take the things off, you would have had on the top there holes and things like that, which you would have had to have filled and sanded, which you can do, but sometimes it's a lot easier to just put a whole new fireplace in, and then it's all brand spanking new for your clients. Now on the flooring you can actually see some of the lighting, so let me show you that, because that is, if you remember, we were having actually uplighters that were going into the flooring, and that will shine a beam from the floor, and it will go right the way up and actually be reflected on the carpet. So let's have a quick look at that now.
So here on the wooden flooring, here is the Lucchini LED miniature uplight, and so it sits in the floor, and as we sort of pan back you can see it's quite small there, and that will basically shine a beam from directly from there and right up. Here's one next to the pillar, and there's another one on the other side of the pillar, which is over here. Let's see if I can go over the other side to show you that. And here's the sofa, which is now blocking the hallway. It's quite huge. Got to unpack that.
One thing to also note is when you're looking at things like taps, bathrooms and cloakrooms is to just keep an eye on what gets put in and just the alignment of different things. In this bathroom here, which is actually the cloakroom, you'll see that the actual tap isn't quite lined up and it's not quite straight sitting on the basin.
So this is the tap. If we move that out of there, you can sort of see, if you look square on, you can see how the tap isn't actually quite straight. Move that over, you can see exactly, it just needs to be turned a little bit round there to make that look a little bit more straighter. That's one of the knobs there for the joinery cabinet at the back here. And if you open that, so if you look down at the bottom, you can see that's the underfloor heating manifold, which has got to be stored somewhere. And then obviously we'll take up this Correx to reveal the tiles later on. So we'll shut that, and on the other side we have obviously a cabinet, and you can put sort of loo roll and various other different things in there, which is all looking good. Needs a touch up of paint around the edges there. And spinning round, we have on the floor here just ready to go up. These are the bathroom accessories from Firm Living. So that is a soap dispenser, a toilet roll holder, which is a triangular one, and then a circular towel holder. So that's all looking good, ready to go on.
One other thing about this cloakroom has been the windows. Now the window has actually been a bit of a bone of contention for me for quite some time. I knew it was going to be changed at some point. How did I know it? Because it looks absolutely horrendous. It needs to be dealt with, it needs to be replaced. Not the entire window, just the glazing. I don't know whether you can actually see it here, it's actually terribly scratched. Really scratched. It's a very, very old piece of glass, and when you get a really old piece of glass, the simplest thing to do is to replace it. Replace it with safety glass, toughened glass, both, however you want to do it, but it will look much better. We're actually going to put some frosting on this, and we're putting some frosting on this because it will actually deal with the privacy issue that you will have going on in here. So people, when they come in and they go to the loo, they won't have to worry about who's looking at them from the back garden. They can just simply not worry about the door. It will let the light through, and yet they'll be completely private in here. Now we're in the kitchen and dining room, and this has actually had a slight transformation since probably since the last time you actually saw it. We actually have a dining table and chairs. This has actually come from the client's previous property, so it's nothing new. I didn't get it myself, and it works quite well. It's very practical being the colour that it is, and it works well within this spot. We've actually, as you can possibly see, the Correx has come up, so the flooring is looking obviously a lot better, a lot brighter, and is looking actually very, very good with the painted joinery and the handles that have just gone on. So that's all looking good, which is great. We have some under-cupboard lighting which has happened as well, which is actually underneath here. And it was actually some lighting there beforehand, but I didn't really know what they were going to do with it. Did they want the remaining lighting to be there? It was very old, it was quite dilapidated, but at some point they will want a new kitchen, so there's no point in putting any sort of fancy lighting in. The best thing to do, something that works, something that is cost effective, and something that they won't need to replace in a hurry. They can keep it for as long as they can keep it, and it can go eventually when the kitchen goes. Now this is the utility room, and the utility room is being used obviously for the utilities. It houses the boiler, which is in here, which we'll have a look at in a moment, and it also houses the washing machine and the dryer. Let's have a quick look around so you can see exactly what's what.
So here are the black and white hula hoop tiles by Fired Earth, and then coming up here, just right next to the washer and dryer stacked there, that's a plug socket that needs a plate on the front, and then moving up there's obviously some wiring at the top there, that's for the sensor. So these lights are on a sensor at the top there. So the boiler is housed behind this door here. You can see a little knob that needs to go on there, but if we sort of go inside, you can kind of see this is an access panel, so you need this so you can get to all of these copper pipes and all the different twists and turns here of the actual boiler. So that's what's going on down there. That's ample, should be ample room for people to do what they're going to do there. Closing that, we have a worktop. Now I put this in for them. It's been varnished, so it's all very nice and smooth for them, but they need some kind of work surface on here, and this is it. This is about as much as we can put in, as much room as we have. Down below there is a cupboard, of course, so that's just a little bit of extra storage. These needs to have a couple of knobs, one there and one there, and that should be able to store their washing powder, etc., etc. That's all looking good. Tiles looking very smart. Radiator. Probably don't need it to be there, but it is. And then just looking back just to see what else has gone on in this room. Here is obviously all the electrical work. Not everything is in and finished. It's not been closed in as yet. Looking good. And at the top, if you remember, there were some pipes, and that's all been boxed in now.
The study is one of the few rooms that we haven't really done anything to at all, apart from a lick of paint, changing a few sockets, and putting in a couple of light switches. We did replace the radiator, which I'll show you in a minute, but apart from that, we've done very little to it. It does actually have quite a multitude of cupboards and things that were put in by the previous owners, and these things are actually obviously quite old. And they're obviously quite dilapidated, but we will be sort of obviously using these as a storage depot and for all their filing once they get round to it. It's not something that I would have recommended them doing straight away, especially if they do tend to actually think that they're going to replace the kitchen and the dining room and everything else. They will probably clear all this out. Maybe they'll knock this wall down and get rid of it altogether. But until that time happens, this is where all their paperwork and filing and very much all the other different bits of storage and paperwork is going to go. Let's now have a look upstairs to see what else has been gone. It's actually quite nice coming here without any of the builders around, so you can actually take a really good look and see what's what, who's done what needs to be on the list of things to remedy or to change, to update, any sort of little bits of painting and things like that. So you can actually have a running list of all the different things in your mind, some of which the builders will know of, some of which they'll have on their own list, but it's worth you going through when you have a quiet moment just to see what there is to be done. The master bathroom is actually one of my favourite rooms in the house. We've done so much to it. Effectively, we've created this room from scratch. If you remember, it was such a very small sort of room that they had before, and we've actually just ripped the wall down and actually made it into something else, and I'm actually quite proud of it. There's a few things I wanted to check today, notably that we have the sockets that we need. These are for, they're called shaver sockets, but we use them for toothbrushes mainly, and I wanted those to be away where they didn't see them. So what we've done is we actually have the basin, the two double basins, and then we have the drawers. And if you open the drawers and you look inside, right at the back, right on the back wall in there, that's where the sockets are. And so when you have the sockets which are hidden away at that stage, you can actually have your toothbrush away and you won't even need to see it. It means that everything is cleaner and clearer on top. Also, one other thing to note is windows. When you do have windows in places that you want to keep windows, such as bathrooms, but you don't think you're going to be using them very much, especially if they're on a low floor in a particular house or a property, then it's best to put on some security locks. And we've put these actually on the children's bathrooms above, and we've put them on for a variety of different reasons, but mainly so that the children don't fall out, as well as the security issue. And obviously we don't need to open the windows fully. So these are the locks that we have. They're the two things, they're two bolts, they go on, and so when this window is opened, it will only go up so far as to here. Therefore, this will be the gap that you have, which will be open for your window, and that's probably quite enough on a bathroom of this size, considering you have a window right over there that's serving the bedroom. As you probably imagine, or perhaps you're even thinking yourself, what on earth is happening with the joinery? Well, I'll tell you. I've had various different calls with him, sort of Friday, Monday, and today about when he'll be starting. He should have started on Friday, he should have started Monday, and then I was told that he was going to be starting today. This didn't happen. I was understandably angry. And I told the head joiner this, and I said it's not acceptable. This is one of the things that you'll have to deal with people not turning up or being busy and not being reliable. So in this particular case, the joiner, as we know, has actually had something quite before him, quite serious within the family. So he was unable to do this himself. What he did was he got me in touch with one of his other colleagues who actually does also do joinery, and they're filling in for him on this particular job. That's all fine and dandy, but I need to make sure that that person is just as reliable as my normal original joiner was. In actual fact, he hasn't been, because he's let me down on 3 days. That's unacceptable. There's nothing I can do about it at this precise stage in time, and the client is accepting because he knows the situation. It's not something I would ever countenance, and if this was my normal joiner, I would not be using him again. There is a rule which I live by. If they have let you down once, they will let you down again. You have to be very clear you don't use them. I am always reliable. I never say I'm going to turn up and then I don't. If I say I'm going to be there, I am there. Nothing stops me short of my legs dropping off. That's it. And that has never happened yet. Here we are in the children's bathroom. Now there's just something I want to show you in here which you will get with alarming regularity. It won't happen on every single job, but especially if you're working in a property that either is very old, which is the main thing, or it's not been made very well, and that is floors. Floors are often not straight, and unless you're ripping out joists, you'll never get them exactly plumb and flush and exactly straight. You can level out a floor as much as you can. There are self-leveling compounds, which are basically like a screed which goes on the floor, levels itself out, and that's the end of it, and then you can put whatever flooring, tiling, wooden flooring on top. But otherwise, most people leave that and they just make adjustments. They're usually minute, and I mean, sometimes we're talking millimeters, sometimes as much as 1 or 2 centimeters. What I noticed here when I looked at this particular basin was I thought it was actually sloping down. Now actually, that's actually the style of the basin. If you have a look, which I'll show you in a moment, the 2 levels are going down actually into the basement. But I looked at the drawers beneath and it just looked off to my eye. Your eye will actually get better as you go ahead doing about these things, but from my point of view, I thought, what on earth is going on here? I thought, why is it not straight? I know that the floor is straight, or at least it's as straight as we can get it. What's causing the problem? So I bent down and I saw a gap. This is what I saw.
So you can see the base and you can see the lines which would throw the eye off. That's leading down into the plug hole. But if you sort of sink down lower, so this is the cabinet and it's sitting quite nicely on the floor there. But as you sort of work your way up, you see a gap, and you see a gap just a little bit underneath the basin, and it would be fine, but it actually gets smaller the more you go to the left, which obviously means that the floor isn't quite straight on one side. But obviously we needed to check this, only a small little bit as you can see, but we still needed to check what the problem was with this particular cabinet.
We have actually tried to move the cabinet up and down. We've tried to move the sink up and down. The problem is the whole level of the bathroom, one thing fits into another. So if you move the sink, then you've got to think about the tiles, because the tiles are all straight, we know, those are all perfectly straight. The basin is actually perfectly straight. If you work your way down, what's happened is the flooring is just a little bit off, and because the actual cabinet is sitting on the floor, it's just a little bit off. Thankfully you can't see it because the actual basin itself is actually above and sitting onto the cabinet, and you can't see the gap. It's actually not making any difference whatsoever to the drawers, but if we did adjust it, it would make a difference. So in this case, it's safer to leave it exactly how it is. So after a very busy day, I am now heading home. I've got a whole string of emails to answer, a whole load of paperwork to go through. I need to chase quite a few people on the phone, and just to get everything in order for the rest of the week, and as well as next week, where I want to tackle the Reading job.